Hello, everybody, and welcome to Sideline to Speedway here, our motorsports edition of the podcast. Mekhi, Winfrey, as always, joined by Parker, Merrey. So a lot happened in the NASCAR side of things this week. A lot of drama unfolded. Singapore, they had a bit of a race over there too with F1. They had some interesting moments. Lots to talk about, lots to cover. Lots of energy running high, especially in the motorsports world entirely. But before we get to all of that, Parker, how did you feel about this past weekend's races?
Very, very exciting. Very exciting cup race, at least. You know, it's always fun to go to the Roval and have an elimination race, see who's in, see who's out. Usually, it's pretty chaotic. You can always count on the Roval to be a pretty chaotic race. And Sunday's race did indeed live up to that. And we saw a lot of stuff happen. We saw that the tire wear, once again, they nailed the tire wear. That was fantastic. So a great race. Very excited to cover that. And also, the building title battle in F1.
I'm going to stray away from what we discussed previously before we went on air here. I'm gonna ask you a question. A lot of times, NASCAR fans love to debate what is the biggest problem with our sport, right? They talk about the car. They talk about the playoff format. They talk about officiating, everything, right? I want to ask you, although it is not perfect, I've been always saying that good tire wear, not crazy, but good enough tire wear to create passing, will always at least aid bad cars and bad races and bad tracks. Does this prove that, considering how just miserable a lot of the time road course racing can be with how hard it is to pass?
Maybe. I think I'd like to see it be applied to a couple more racetracks that are a little worse with dirty air because, road courses can be kind of bad with dirty air, but typically the mile and a halves are not as bad. I think it did say a lot, though, at Bristol because the fact that Bristol turned from... Okay, so Bristol has had 6 next-gen races, somewhere around 5 or 6. And of those next-gen races...
7 or 8.
Yeah, the only 2 that have been good were the races with extreme tire wear. The others have been some of the worst races we've seen. So I think if there's any race to pinpoint, a race like Bristol would prove that point because, the tire wear saved this year's race and then last year's spring race at Bristol as well.
Goodyear's been doing some good stuff recently, honestly. Basically everywhere you've went, tires have mattered. I don't know about Kansas as much. I mean, we can debate that as much as you want, but generally, the last 5 races or so, tire wear has really mattered. It's been a factor basically the entire playoffs, which is actually good to see. I like seeing that cars can come and go throughout the race. I know SVG, who ended up winning, we'll get to him in a moment, he was a reoccurrence throughout the race, but outside of him, Larson and Bell, the front of the field changed quite a bit. So it was nice to see that happen, is what I will say about that. I'd also like to mention this week they announced that, actually yesterday I believe, from us recording this, they announced that they will be adding horsepower back to 750 for the road courses and short tracks. So they're also trying to help the dirty air by creating more opportunity for mistakes, of course. They're trying to make more throttle control. Obviously, there's no negative that comes out of this, right? This is just good for NASCAR in whole.
Yeah, it's weird to me that we would do that we would start with the short tracks and the road courses because I feel like higher horsepower is good at those racetracks, but I feel like it would have more of a difference at some of the bigger racetracks we see, like your Poconos, your Michigans, your mile and a halves. I think the reason they didn't do that is because of how good the mile and a halves have been. They don't want to change that package, but I'm not sure if we're going to see too much of a change. It might help a little bit, but I don't see it being that huge of a difference at short tracks and mile and a halves. Or short tracks and road courses. Usually horsepower differences don't seem to be too drastic there.
Honestly, I said the same thing when I heard the news. Talking to my parents about it, I was like, I think that it would be interesting to go to the mile and a halves with that horsepower change, but there tracks like Charlotte, like Kansas, like Michigan have been good with this package. There's no need to really run the change. The short tracks have struggled. The road courses have struggled. I see why they make the change here and not elsewhere. Also, not my parents. I don't remember who I was talking to about it. I don't know why I said my parents. I just defaulted. Good changes so far this week for NASCAR and good progression with tire wear. I'm actually really happy with where the sport is headed as a whole. But to the race itself that we just watched this weekend, the Charlotte Roval, SVG takes his, 5th win? Fourth,
Yeah.
fifth career. I think fourth of the year,
Yep, I believe
right?
it is his fifth career win. Yes.
So, another win at a road course for him. I think he's now won at every road course with the exception of Coda. So, he's got some work to do there in the spring. But we'll have to. Well, I guess in San Diego they added now. But you
Yeah.
get every current road course. Anyway, he wins. It was pretty dominant. He actually had some competition there. It wasn't like he just was by far the best car. I mean, he kind of was, but he kind of like people could challenge him at the start of a run. So it was nice to see that he had some sort of challenge. But in the end, SVG was able to pull away from Larson and Bell. Um, Before we get to the actual playoff drama, what did you make of that SVG Larson squabble that we saw for like 3 laps? That was really fun racing, I think.
Yeah, I thought it was really cool. I think we saw three of the most talented drivers duel it out at a road course, and I thought it was very fun to see. Got a little physical with SVG and Larson, and to me, I don't even remember like feeling any aggressive emotions like, oh, SVG shouldn't have done that, or oh, Larson shouldn't have done that. All I was thinking was, dude, NASCAR's so back. Like, this is the kind of racing we missed. The kind of racing where you can get up, you can get aggressive with people, and you can make they were making back and forth passes. It's not just faster car gets stuck behind slower car for 5 laps, finally makes the pass, and the battle's over. No, it's back and forth racing. And I didn't even care who was at fault for the incidents. I love to see that kind of racing, which is so entertaining, and it just truly felt like NASCAR's back.
SVG was clearly the faster car, but Larson did damn near everything in his power to keep the 88 behind him, which was nice to see that he was actually the other way around as compared to usually the faster car being behind. But SVG wins. I don't have too much to comment on him winning. At least checks out. Was the favorite entering. I didn't pick it. You didn't pick it. We should have picked it. We should have
Yeah.
we should have just stuck with the normal. But
I just thought it was gonna be so chaotic that
yeah, that's what I was thinking.
So.
But no, we were wrong. So SVG takes home the W. As for the playoffs, okay. Before we get to the big elephant in the room, let's just quickly address the other drivers that were eliminated. We'll start with Austin Cindric. Man, he had a rough race.
He did. And I mean, and none of it was really his fault. He just had so many incidents early. And then he had the Austin Dillon incident where just Austin Dillon just straight up, or no, it was Hocevar.
Yes, it was Hocevar. Yeah,
it was
Hocevar.
Hocevar locks up, nails Cindric. That took him out of the race, essentially. So it didn't work for him. He didn't really have the speed anyway to do much, but that was just adding salt to the wounds to have that kind of a race to be eliminated.
I felt bad. I read a report after. He was he was so devastated after having.
I saw that. Yeah.
I feel bad for him. That's not. Anyway, you want to at least see a guy have a chance to make it to the round of 8. Seemed like Penske, honestly, or whatever. Maybe it was who's the crew chief on that car? Is it Brian Wilson, right?
The car chief or the crew chief?
No, the crew chief. Who's the crew chief on the car?
I think so. Yeah.
It's Brian Wilson, right?
Yeah.
Just whatever it was, missed the setup or something. But that 2 cars headed home. It was by 6-7 points, but no, it ends up by 66 now. So anyway, otherwise we had 2 23-11 cars eliminated today, or the other day, whatever. Bubba Wallace and Tyler Reddick. What do you think of that?
Yeah, it's just for Reddick, I actually think there was times that he showed the pace to be able to take the win. Early on, he was battling with SVG. I don't really know if you can call it a battle, but he was up there, and then he just started to fade. It was clear that the car didn't have the long run speed they were looking for, so they just missed it a little bit. I got a little nervous at first at the beginning because it's like, oh, he might have a quick car. He might be tough to handle here. As a Logano fan, but it ended up not really materializing for him. And then they got kind of back on strategy. Strategy was a big deal in this race because of the pit stops that we had. Normally, we're so used to 2 strategies at a road course. You either stay out at the end of the stage to get your stage points. You stay out before the end of the stage, get your stage points. And if you are not going for stage points, you want to win the race, you pit before the end of the stage. And so, but we didn't see that on Sunday because you basically had to pit in at least twice in the stage because of the tire wear. So a lot of points were taken off the table for guys like Reddick and Bubba, and it kind of resorted them to just must-win scenarios because there wasn't a chance to stay out and get a free, 10 points, because you had to pit. So it just didn't end up working out for him or Bubba Wallace, who never really had the pace to do much on Sunday. So both of them were out in pretty heartbreaking fashion.
Yeah, I'd like to take this quick second. We talked about this, I know, at a little bit of length last week. So it did end up coming back to haunt 2311 that Denny Hamlin walled his driver last week. Um, yeah, I mean, let's be real. Bubba Wallace was not going to go to the Roval, most likely, and go and win that race, let alone with the car that they gave him. Just was not in the cards. They tried. I know they tried on strategy a few different things. It just wasn't working. 45 continued to fade throughout the race. The whole entire race, they just seemingly got worse. So neither of them really had a fight for the cut line or were going to fight for the win, which they both kind of needed to win. And because obviously they didn't get stage points, they were then in must win, and that just obviously was not the case because the three cars up front have been the three best road course racers over the handful of seasons that we've seen in the next gen car. However, there was one driver who got close to the cut line. In fact, he was so close that he was tied on the cut line at one point. Ross Chastain just short. We mentioned Denny Hamlin and how he took his own driver out of the playoffs effectively. This one not as intentional, but he passed Ross Chastain fairly, right? Completely clean pass. But he radioed that he after the fact and then said in his interview he had no idea of the point situation, which if I'm the spotter or crew chief, how do you not tell your driver the guy around you is fighting for points, like literally needs a point and he'd be in? But yeah, Hamlin ends the dreams of Ross Chastain for going for the championship, at least this season. Just fast forwarding to the last lap there in the last corner, what do you make of that?
The move by Chastain.
Yeah.
I mean, it is what it is. I think it is interesting how a couple laps earlier in the race we saw Logano put a bump and run on a couple of race cars, and everyone flipped out about that. And then when Chastain wrecks a car, dives 20 mile an hour faster into the corner and wrecks Denny Hamlin, it's a brilliant move, and there's then nothing but love to go around. I thought that was kind of interesting, but I didn't personally have a problem with it. I just thought that the hypocrisy was a little weird about that, but whatever. That's a little off topic, but it is what he had to do, and we all knew it was coming, or at least I did. Going into that last corner, you just knew going into a heavy braking zone, needing 1 point, that he was going to go for it. And Denny Hamlin, who's had a rough round, very rough round. We had some discussions about some hypocrisy of his own last week at Kansas. And now here at the Roval, his team doesn't give him the info, which I thought was weird. You would think that they would want to know that, but yeah, I guess they just weren't thinking about it. If he had Chris Gabehart on the box, maybe there would have been some discussion there, but definitely not with this new crew chief. So that didn't work out for Chastain or Hamlin. And then Logano, of course, was able to just that was kind of poetic how Chastain got to reverse across the line and see the guy who's keeping him out of the next round drive by him. So that must have been a sad moment for him. But he went for it. You got to respect it.
Yeah, I mean, you can't fault him for making that move. You can fault whatever you want besides the driver, because in that situation, you're fighting for a championship. That's your season on the line, and the guy you're going for is already locked in, effectively. So, I mean, you're not ending somebody else's season in the process. I have no problem with it. And people were bumping each other all day, so about that Logano stuff, everyone bumps each other all day. It's the Roval. I mean, I have no hard feelings about that if I was a fan of any of those drivers. Same would go anyway. He didn't intentionally wreck anybody, but I digress. Chastain just short. I told you I wanted Chastain to win. Honestly, I will say he probably had the fourth behind those front three. He probably had the next best car in the race itself, but he made so many pit mistakes that honestly is the reason he didn't make the next round. You can point at the last lap, right? Because that's just kind of what happened. That's what it chalked up to. But Ross just short. I mean, if he doesn't miss the exit of pit road, or if he doesn't speed on pit road, those are points. All points right there. And he actually would have gotten stage points in second stage if he hadn't missed pit road, I believe it was. So, or missed the exit of pit road, I should say. He just didn't turn time. So, I don't know. Uncharacteristic, too. Not very common things from Ross Chastain. So, A little, a little bit sad to see, but you know what? It was, it is what it is, and the 22 manages to once again survive a round of 12. It wasn't pretty, was not pretty, but they survived the last stint there at the end. So they advanced to the round of 8. And do you have any other final thoughts on the Roval entirely, or anybody want to give a shout out
Yeah, it
to?
was it was a fun race. And kind of speaking on the 22 who did get in, they did not have a quick car at all. It was a very poor race car, and but they decided, hey, you know what? If we don't have the car to do it, we're just going to go ahead and give Logano fresh tires. Pit with 9 laps to go. That's a massive pit call. And at the time when they did it, I couldn't believe they were doing it, because I can't imagine how hard it is to actually, when your driver is 2 points above the cut line, say, you know what, let's pit. Because then when they pitted, he came out -8, I believe. Like, he was way down. So to basically put the ball in his hands at the end, they were putting a lot of faith in Logano to they put faith in Logano, not the race car. And look, you can put a lot of faith and a lot of your reliance on the driver, but at some point you got to deliver the race car. And they did not do it at the Roval. They couldn't, at Kansas they had a decent car, but they couldn't keep out of the big one that got them in this situation. So they need to start bringing better cars to the racetrack if they want to compete. Which we've seen them; they can flip on a switch when they want to. But I don't know if they need a new car chief or what, because this has been an issue for a couple of years now.
I will say too, the one final part about that is that while it was a good drive from Logano to get back up through a handful of cars, he was severely aided by the aging tires of Ross Chastain, who had not pitted on that final cycle when most people did. So who he was limping around the racetrack, it felt like. So that also played into their favor. It wasn't as much of a good strategy call as much as it was just kind of Logano made a few spots up, Chastain lost a few, and then it just kind of met in the middle. So that was kind of what ended up doing the one car in as well, besides from all the mistakes and the wreck we talked about as well, of course. But
That's why
looking
they
at
did. They didn't want to be in Chastain's situation.
I don't blame him. I wouldn't want. Trust me, if I was any driver and you're Joey Logano, when he's right below the cut line with 1 point on the line, oh, you don't want to be in that spot. A couple other notable finishers from the Roval. I want to shout out AJ Allmendinger keeping his top 10 streak alive at the Charlotte Roval. He is always good here. Does another good job. Ty Dillon at one point was running actually really solid. Eventually, he had a what do we call it? A through goes Hamilton moment when the two leaders collided out of the backstretch chicane. It was pretty funny.
I
Um,
know.
that
That
was
was
pretty that
awesome.
was pretty funny. But yeah, he had an all right race at one point. Um, we saw, oh my God, somebody went around. Austin Dillon, he went into the barriers over there. He smacked some tires. That was probably not a fun hit.
Oh yeah.
Riley Herbst cut his own tire on Ty Dillon, by the way. That was also very funny. It was a good race. It had a bit of comedy. It had a bit of it, which is very rare in a race to have comedy like that and it be unharmful.
Yeah.
But it was good racing, hard racing. And it was a good tire fall off. So it was a good weekend overall at the Charlotte Roval. But as we look forward, we take it down from 12 to 8, and we have to make it go from 8 to 4 in 3 weeks. We have Las Vegas coming up this weekend, Talladega, the big wild card in the middle. I hate saying the big wild card because there's another wild card, and that's Martinsville, and that's the cutoff. So 3 races to decide who gets to fight for a championship. Before we look into who we actually think makes it, I want to ask you real quickly. Is there any driver you are concerned about before we get into this round? Besides Logano, I already know you voiced your concerns
Yeah.
there.
I'm concerned about Elliott as well. Because again, I think in terms of the raw pace, Elliott and Logano are a little behind the other six. Um, and Elliott, in the same way that I have concerns about Logano, I do have concerns about Elliott, because even as we talked about, even when they won Kansas, they didn't win the race on pace. They won it on strategy / luck, or whatever you want to call. I wouldn't call it luck. I just call it having a top 5 race car, and then when the top 2 race cars get into it, you take advantage. That's not luck. That's just putting yourself in a good position. So big credit to Chase Elliott, but the race car itself was not where it needs to be to make the Final Four. Even when they had their best race in years, and take the win, they didn't win it on pace. So they need to come in with more pace. And I also have a lot of concerns about William Byron because I heard a stat today. Don't know if this is true. Is it true that William Byron has not led a lap since August? Is that a true fact?
While you're speaking, I'll fact check that. But
I did hear this. I could not believe, like, William, and it makes sense. They have not been good. Kansas, they were awful. At the Roval, they did not have a very good race car. What, at New Hampshire, we obviously saw that they finally showed the speed they were looking for. But then after New Hampshire, they were right back to their old ways again. So, they need to show a lot of pace. And nobody has a buffer. That's the thing. Even Denny Hamlin, who leads the points, he's only 8 above. That can go away in one stage. So William Byron, all the points buffer he had is gone. He's only +4 in this round. So they're not just going to be able to ride the coattails of a regular season championship. They're going to have to show some pace, which they have not shown in a while.
In the last 10 races, to back up your stat here, in the last 10 races, he's led 146 laps. 141 of them were at Iowa. He led 5 at Daytona. He has not led more than 5 laps since his Iowa win.
Wow.
So
yeah. Daytona was August, right? So he literally hasn't led since August. Wow.
And Iowa was in July. Iowa was in July. So
really, he hasn't led a real non-super speedway race in 3 months almost. That's insane.
And I mean, that's great. We have Talladega in the round, but he's never actually won at Talladega, as good as he is there. So, and again, the stat still holds, aside from Kyle Busch. You have to win in the playoffs to win a championship. So, concerns there, a bit concerned there, but we'll see. One driver I'm concerned about that you didn't mention. I'm telling you, I'm concerned about Denny Hamlin, man. I don't like this mindset. There's something off because between getting into your teammate, your own driver, then backing your mistake and not apologizing or anything, not taking any responsibility, and then not having team communication about a driver who's right below the cut line, that's a bit concerning as well, especially considering that it was your biggest rival who just advanced through this. There's too much going on. The 11's problem has always been the politics of the sport when it gets to playoff time, and it again arises. It was 11 against the world, and then I beat your favorite driver, and then all of these things. Hamlin needs to have a quiet round. Even if it's not like I win a race, but like just finishes 3rd and then 5th, and then I don't know, a good result at Martinsville. That's enough. That's all he needs. He doesn't need to go win, right? He just needs to have a quiet round. That's all I'm saying. But aside from that, let's give the predictions here. Let's stop teasing. We'll go one by one here. Who do you think will be out first in this round? Like who's 8? Who's your 8th?
So my 8th, I'm gonna have Chase Elliott at my 8th. I don't know how well this round fares for them. I think Martinsville's their best chance of getting in. Talladega fares well for nobody, and then Las Vegas is kind of whatever for them. But they need to go and probably win at Martinsville if they want to make it, because like we've mentioned, in most round of 8s, going into the Final Four, there's only going to be one spot on points available. And I don't know if Elliott can outpoint the other guys. So I think he's going to have, especially with the deficit that he has, he's 14 below the 4th place guy of Larson and Byron. So they might need to win Martinsville, and I'm just not feeling super confident. I think they're going to have a struggling round. They've had some struggles lately. I don't feel great about them. I'm going to have them at the number 8 slot.
I'm going to make a comment before I make my 8th place here. This is the toughest overall round of 8 we have seen in the next gen. That's my I don't know if it's bold or not, but that's my take. This is the toughest round of 8 we've seen in the next gen car. Simply because every one of these drivers, even though they don't have a car, is capable of winning anywhere. So that's what's important here. With that being said, my 8th, this might surprise some people. It's going to be Chase Briscoe. Why is it Chase Briscoe? Because every single time we go to the fall Vegas race, JGR just doesn't hit it. They just don't. Besides Christopher Bell, they don't. They miss it. Hamlin is good at Vegas. I'm tired of acting like Hamlin is not historically good at Las Vegas. He is. But he's not in this fall, and he hasn't been since COVID. And that's uncharacteristic. Ty Gibbs, who one of his best tracks is Las Vegas, is always good in the spring, is nowhere to be seen in the playoffs. The same thing was happening with Truex when he was good at Vegas. He was great in the spring, but he was never good in the playoffs. And I'm concerned, considering that Talladega is a track that, when drafting entirely, is just not a good spot for Briscoe. Plus that with Martinsville, where he's 50-50. He's good there, but he's also very 50-50. All that leads me to believe he'll be 8th, although I don't think it's going to be a pace factor. That's my 8th place, and I'll go back to back here so that you can have a little suspense for you. 7th place, I'm going to also take Chase Elliott now. Look, I keep doubting him. I actually picked him way back in January, whenever I made my list. I actually had him win the championship. Why? Wow. Because I was like, all right, Chase Elliott's going to turn around this year. You know what? He's gotten to victory lane twice, so I'll give him credit. They've kind of gotten around a little bit, but the speed is just not there. If they show up and win Martinsville, they're a threat. I will say they are a threat for Phoenix if they can win Martinsville, because it's two kind of similar racetracks. But I don't think they'll win, and I therefore think they will be out in the round of 8 because I don't trust them at Las Vegas, and he never has had consistent luck at Talladega.
Okay. All right. At my 7th spot, I'm going to have Joey Logano. A lot of people are having him make the Final Four, but it's an odd year, and I think the trend is going to continue this year. There's a little bit of something missing right now. They have shown speed. They've been showing speed this playoffs. It's not necessarily a lack of speed, but it also feels like they're getting into a lot of trouble. At the Roval, they were stuck in the back for a lot of the race because they didn't have the pace. And then at Kansas, when they had a pretty decent car, they got in a wreck. And then I look at these 4 races, Martinsville, Talladega, and Las Vegas. Not so much Las Vegas, but Martinsville and Talladega are 2 very chaotic racetracks. And of all the 8 drivers, I would bet Logano's up there. He might have the most DNFs. He and Blaney are close, but they both have a ton of DNFs this year. But Blaney hasn't had one in a while, whereas Logano is having some recent crashes. So I don't feel good about Logano keeping out of trouble this round, but he could easily win one of these races. I would not have a doubt of that. It's either this for Logano. It's either he wins or he's going to be like 40 points below. I don't think Logano can point his way in. I think they would need to show up with a blazing fast race car, and he would take it to victory lane. But I have him 7th.
Who do you got 6th? I'm going to make you go back to back here.
I'm going to do it back to back.
You're going to go back to back.
All right. In the 6th spot, I'm going to have William Byron. Look, rough. Coming into the playoffs, I literally had him not winning the championship, but making the Final Four, and winning some races in the playoffs. I had him being really good. Because it felt like he needed a rebound. The end of his regular season, kind of after Iowa, he was kind of he kind of fell off a little bit. And I was like, okay, he's just coasting because he has a huge lead in the regular season championship. But now we've gotten to the playoffs and we're seeing that's not the case. The 24 legitimately needs speed. And unlike, we talked about Logano and Elliott, unlike those 2, Byron has not shown the clutch gene needed in the playoffs to go win the championship. He has not. You can say what you want about him as a driver. So far, he's not shown the clutch gene. And so I don't see that changing this year and getting him into the Final Four. I think the lack of speed is what we're going to see, and that's going to lead to elimination.
Man, that's going to ruffle some feathers.
It will. It will. I don't like doing it. I had him in the Final Four coming in, but
we both did.
I don't like what I see out of them.
In fact, I had him winning the championship before we got here.
You did.
We'll see if I still have that, but at 6, man, all right. I don't want to say man, this is really tough. I'm gonna let you know now. My first through 3rd is like a group, and then my 4 through 6 is like a group. So it gets really tough at this juncture. Give me Kyle Larson 6, because I know he actually finishes well at Talladega, but he hasn't won in the playoffs, which I'm not banking on him to go win Martinsville with Ryan Blaney, Denny Hamlin, and Chase Elliott all in this round, right? So I'm not banking on that. He's never won Talladega, and Vegas, while he's great there, and he's won a lot of fall races here, that 5 has just, at the intermediates especially, not looked as fast as it has. It's good at the short tracks. In fact, they've been stronger at the short tracks recently than anywhere else. They were good at New Hampshire. They were pretty good at Bristol. But where have they been on the mile and a halves? Honestly. They were good at Kansas, but they fell off. So I don't know. I have concerns. So with that being said, I'm going to have to take Larson 6, although I think he will be kind of close to the cut line. And I think this is a year that they can't afford to miss the Final Four, so it'll raise some questions I mean, we've had Larson as the consensus best driver in the sport for most people since 2021. I'm just saying, if he doesn't make this one for back-to-back years, you're going to start to hear some people question that. That's all I'm saying. And then I guess that leaves me my five, and I'll tell you, it's between William Byron and Joey Logano.
Really?
I think I have Blaney in. I think I don't know whether he wins or he doesn't. I think Blaney will be in. I think same thing for Hamlin. And Bell just seems too consistent for me to knock out. Between a Hendrick car that has not won since Iowa, or looked like they can win since Iowa, and a Penske car that has one win on the year, and it was whatever you want to call it, that Texas race. I gotta take Byron for the Final Four. I'm gonna knock Logano out. And the only reason I'm gonna knock Logano out is just because Joey Logano has this little thing where he can't seem to he has to win at the start of the round. I've never seen Logano go past the first race of the round and then win and then make it. And I don't think he's winning Vegas. I just don't think the 22 has the mile and a half speed this year. So he would have to go win Martinsville or Talladega, and he's never had luck at the play tracks as good as he is at them. And then at Martinsville, when's the last time he won there? 2018, right? When he moved the 78, the infamous call. So I don't know. Unless Logano's going to have some great speed at Vegas, I can't predict him to make the Final Four. I think between him and Byron, it'll be really close, but I can't do it. So give me Logano, Larson, Elliott, and Briscoe. Am I going to be for my 4 eliminations?
All right. So for me, it comes down to my last prediction now. So I'm going to go and tell you the drivers that I think are safe from elimination. For me, Denny Hamlin, Ryan Blaney, and Christopher Bell.
Same thing.
I have all 3 of them in, because I like they have a good speed consistency balance right now. Hamlin and Blaney have, it's not much of a cushion, but it's a little bit of a cushion. And when I look at these racetracks, if I had to pick winners at Vegas and Martinsville, I feel like the winners are going to come from that group. I get, Martinsville feels like a Blaney. Vegas, even though you talked about the Gibbs struggles, that could be a race for them to get it done. So I see those 3 getting in. And so then it comes down to one last spot between Kyle Larson and Chase Briscoe. Look, at the beginning of the playoffs, I had Chase Briscoe in making the Final Four. And if you just look at the speed, Chase Briscoe has been pretty fast. He's had a top 5 to 10 car pretty much every race in the playoffs. Can you think of a race he's not been fast?
The only race, I don't know. Like, that'd be me nitpicking. He's been pretty fast all playoffs. Yeah,
I think he's one of the only drivers, if not the only one, who's had a top 5 to 10 car in every single race in the playoffs. That's incredible consistency. Then you look on the other side with Kyle Larson. It's, he's made the Final Four before. He's won a championship before. He knows how to get it done. Briscoe may have more of a clutch gene than Larson, but Larson's just a more talented driver.
That's a hot take.
What?
That Briscoe has a better clutch gene than Kyle Larson?
Oh, it's definitely not a hot take. It can't be.
I think that's a hot take.
Kyle Larson is so great in the regular season, and his playoff success always drops off.
Kyle Larson won 5 races in the playoffs in his championship year.
Yeah, but since then, what has he done in the playoffs? He hadn't made a Final Four since 23, where he got pretty much outclassed in the finale by his teammate and Blaney. I don't think Larson has the look. It's not a knock on Larson.
No, I agree. That's not necessarily like, I don't know if I hate the take. I'm just saying that it's a hot take. Most people
it's something.
Most people will not agree with that.
Yeah, I don't think it's close, because I've just seen like the elevation of Briscoe's regular season to playoff performance is always so huge. Whether he's with SHR and now Gibbs, so I feel like there's more of a clutch gene there. So between these 2, it could very well come down to who has the bigger cushion. And Larson has 14 points over Chase Briscoe. So it would take a lot to overturn that. But I do think he will do it. Chase Briscoe is going to get through these 3 races. And I think it's honestly probably going to come down to Talladega. Who can keep their nose clean and stay out of the wrecks at Talladega? Historically, Kyle Larson is cursed there. So I don't like Talladega being in this round for Larson. If you would switch Talladega with, say, Homestead like last year, I would have Larson in over Briscoe. But just having Talladega in there, I just cannot rely on Larson to make it. I'm going to have Briscoe in over him.
I just disagree, because Larson, it feels like, always finishes like third to fifth at these plate races, and it's just like it's always where he is. I mean,
He's been
maybe
getting better
maybe
there recently. That's
maybe
fair.
maybe maybe this year he gets caught off guard again. I don't know, but recently he's been kind of on a tear at finishing in the top five there. So we'll see. You could be right. I won't. I don't hate that idea. I obviously don't have Larson in mind either. But or we'll see. We'll see how that plays out. But let's look ahead real quick to Las Vegas before we kind of switch gears. All right. So we talked about the eight drivers. Real quickly, let's rattle it off. What is the actual current point situation entering this Vegas race?
All right, so the point situation, Denny Hamlin is your 1 seed right now. He's 8 points above the cut line. He, 8 points is not a lot, but it's a decent little gap. Blaney is 6 above. Then Larson and Byron are both 4 above. They're the last two guys in. Now we look at the guys who are out. Christopher Bell is 4 points out. Chase Elliott and Chase Briscoe, the two Chases, are both 14 out. And then Joey Logano is 24 out. Could need a win. We'll see.
Joey Logano is already creeping near must-win territory, and the
You don't want to
playoffs.
put him in a must-win situation either.
I don't know if that's an idea. I don't know if it's a good idea. But all right. Looking ahead to Las Vegas, that's the situation. Do you want to make win picks now, or do you want to talk about what we think we're going to get this weekend?
If you have a win pick, you can go ahead, but we can discuss.
Let's look. Let's finish up the playoff discussion real quick. I'll say this. If you want my prediction of what the standings will look like after Vegas, because there's a little enough drivers where I'll do this. Of these 8, I think Logano will still be below the cut line because I don't think he's winning. I think Elliott will be below the cut line. I do think that Larson is gonna fall below the cut line here, and I think to start the round, Hamlin is gonna fall below the cut line. I think he'll be back above it, but I think he's gonna start below the cut line.
Interesting.
So I think Briscoe will be above Byron, Blaney, and Bell, because I think I just think Bell and Blaney are just, they feel like they've been so consistent and fast with no problems. It feels like so. That's my logic there. Do you want to give yours, or do you?
I'll give a winner pick. How about that?
All right, go for it.
I think to open out the round at Las Vegas and put himself in a great position to go win this championship, I think Christopher Bell is going to come into this Las Vegas race and pick up the victory. He's had some decent speed lately. We saw him compete for the win at the Roval. And I do think that the 20 team is going to take a little bit of a step up in this round. And I think they're going to win and lock themselves in, which whoever wins this Las Vegas race is going to be heavily favored to win the championship, because we know, if you can give your team 2 extra weeks to prepare, that is going to be huge. And they could come to Phoenix with an absolute rocket ship. So I think they're gonna win this race and establish themselves as the favorite pretty early. Besides maybe the Penske cars, let's be real.
All right. So you know how I said earlier that actually I didn't say this. You did just say it though, so I can use that. So you just said that it gives them 2 weeks to prepare if they can win this race, a playoff driver. That's why I don't think it's gonna happen. I don't think a playoff driver is winning this race. I don't think something crazy is happening. I want to clarify. I don't actually think that we're going to get, Todd Gilliland wins. No. Honestly, if you want my prediction, though, give me Tyler Reddick to win, and it be a heartbreaking win, because it's going to be like, man, what could have been if we had made it to the Final Four, or if we made it to the round of 8 and got to the Final Four and had a chance to go back and fight for a championship again. And you're probably like, why would you pick Tyler Reddick? Because Tyler Reddick at Las Vegas, historically, especially in the later part of the season, happens to just be really, really good here. And I don't know what it is. I don't know why. And even when they were having down races in a row, down seasons, he's always good here. He's always really good here. So
he was really good here last year, if you remember.
So give me Tyler Reddick, because nice. Give me Tyler Reddick to win. And if it's going to be a playoff driver, I will agree with you and say it's Christopher Bell, if it's a playoff driver.
Yeah.
I think that's inevitable.
Look, Reddick was great in the fall race last year. Let's not forget it.
Yeah, he was tumbling quick.
Okay, I thought you. Okay, there we go.
No, I knew.
It'll be a revenge race,
I genuinely think somebody is going to win a race in this round that was already eliminated from the playoffs, and it's going to kind of just be a what could have been. So
that's an interesting pick.
It's happened with Toyota and one of their drivers before.
It happened. I remember it happened to Dale Jr. in 2014.
I'm still upset, by the way. I'm still upset at NASCAR. Too many men over a wall. Yeah,
That's tough.
still bothers me.
Matt Kenseth, no.
Mm,
I didn't know what you were talking about at first, but when you bring up too many men over the wall, that's
yeah.
the first
Too,
thing you associate Matt Kenseth with, or at least I do.
so
Bro, Matt Kenseth didn't even like win the 2003 title. Like that's not even his main reputation. His main reputation is literally the 2017 elimination.
his main reputation is to like the casual viewer is like that he killed he killed the full season format. That's what people believe.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, but anyway, yeah. So
Or he killed Joey Logano. You could say that too.
hey, okay. Well, I won't say killed Joey Logano, but he killed his season.
Yeah,
He killed his season,
yeah.
which I'm not too upset about that one based on what happened. Anyway, as we kind of switch gears here, I take Reddick, you take Bell. I did not take a Russell win at Singapore happening.
No, I
That
had him
was
on the
not my cards.
podium.
We did. We both
I did
did.
not have him winning though.
I think we both had him third, if I'm right.
Maybe. I know I had him third. But...
I definitely did. I remember my front four. I had it going Norris, Verstappen, Russell, Piastri. If you swap Norris and Russell, I was right. So, look.
Yeah, very,
God.
very interesting how the McLaren boys did not show the pace at Singapore. Now we kind of talked about this on the last episode, how it makes a little bit of sense because historically the quickest car going into Singapore struggles. I don't know why the Red Bull in its dominance did it, the Mercedes in its dominance did it. It's just a theme, and it seems to have hurt the McLaren a little bit. Not super bad, but they don't look as good as the Mercedes or maybe even the Red Bull. And Max Verstappen, even though he gets a second place finish at Singapore, I still think he feels like he left a little bit on the table because if you told Max Verstappen that he was going to go into Singapore and finish ahead of both McLarens, he would have been like, yes, I finally won at Singapore. That's not what happens. He left 7 points on the table to George Russell. So that could very well come back to haunt him. And in my opinion, it takes his 0.01% chance of winning the title and makes it a 0.00001% chance of winning it.
I think that's crazy. I honestly think that's insane. I think Max Verstappen's actually closer to winning it now than without it, not winning it. Because he outpoints both McLarens, right? Which is the task. Like, he has to do that at every race. And I know you'll be like, oh, well, he didn't win. I don't think he had to. I think he's in their minds now. I actually think he is, especially Lando, but he's definitely creeping into the thought of McLaren. Because
Orlando.
he is. Is that analysis wrong?
I think it's. I don't fully agree, honestly, but no, he's in their minds.
Like, it's a thought. I'm not saying he's like Lando is.
It's not consuming their mind, but it's a thought.
No, it's there, but it gets bigger every time. Every time they race. It's a creeping thing in their head because it's like, well, we don't want to let the quote unquote best driver in the sport get in contention with his car, right? Because his car, if he beats us, we have the best car all season. What does that say? Right? Even if he beats one of their two cars in the points, what does that tell you? Because McLaren has been very vocal that they are not a driver one, driver two team. So if they beat one of their cars, if he beats one of their cars, it's almost like a what is going on, right? So whatever. But ultimately, the story was about George Russell because he won. So it was nice to see him get back to victory lane. I think it's his second win of the year. Correct me if I'm wrong.
That would be. He won in Canada as well.
So Russell gets the job done. As we continue to kind of look at the rest of the points finishers, I think I was actually kind of close to accurate. I gave you my full points finishers, and I was not that far off. At least with the drivers who would be in the points. Did Hamilton get the 5-second time penalty though after the race? I heard he did.
Maybe, but it didn't affect his standing.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to pull up the. Here it is. So Piastri was fourth, which I had happening anyway. That did end up coming to fruition. Antonelli got a top 5. I think I had him in the top 5. Leclerc, Hamilton, the Ferraris. If they didn't finish in the top 10, that would have been concerning. I had the wrong Haas, but I had a Haas in there. Behrman is the one who scored. Sainz scored, which He
Your
he cont-
favorite driver
he
getting it done.
continues. It's funny because if you ask me, just for anybody, if you ask me who I root for the least on the grid, it's not even Signs. It just happens to be the person I'm now going to be
Yeah.
synonymous with hating. So, but he scored a point, and I was right with Alonso scoring. He scored 4 points this weekend as well. He got an eighth place finish. Um, Aside from the actual points itself, what did you think of course, the Lando stuff and Piastri?
I thought that was kind of wild. We've seen the teammates collide before. We've seen a lot of controversy between them. Um, I don't know what to think. This is the weirdest title battle that we've seen, maybe ever. It's the weirdest one that I've seen, because the Hamilton Max one a few years ago was, they were aggressive and they were pushing the line. This one just feels clumsy to me. Does it give you that vibe? Like it just feels
No,
like a
absolutely.
clumsy fight.
But do you see why I keep thinking Max is gonna keep entering this? Because look at what's happening.
I mean, yeah. I
That's
mean, I
my that's what I'm saying. Because McLaren is just all over the place.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the two drivers of Piastri and Norris are probably not as well equipped to this title battle as they should be. Um, I kind of a comparison that I could draw would be Lewis Hamilton in 2007. Under any other circumstances, he would have won that championship, but he was a rookie, so he made a mistake at China that cost him the championship. Could we be seeing the youth of Piastri, costing him? There's no excuse for Lando Norris, by the way. I'm not. Lando Norris has been in F1 way too long to be fumbling and mumbling around. Piastri, though, this is literally his third season, so very rarely do we see people in their third season contend for a title. I think Hamilton, Vettel are the only two that come to mind, right? So,
Vettel won it in his third full season, and Hamilton won it in his second. So
yeah, and was competing for one as a rookie. Yeah, so this is just like Piastri's in some uncharted territory. So I could see what you're saying of those two, kind of losing. They're definitely losing the mental game. I'll tell you that much. They are already losing the mental game. Now it just comes down to if they can hang on to the point lead they have, which, in my opinion, 6 races to go, 63-point
I think it's
deficit.
is it six or
Verstappen would, yeah, there's 6 races
okay.
left. Verstappen would need to win every race and hope Piastri finishes third, which doesn't sound that crazy, but it's crazy when you consider the fact that it would have to happen every single race. Like, I can't imagine Verstappen winning 6 straight races and Piastri being third 6 straight races. It seems unlikely. The more likely scenario would be the McLaren's wrecking 2 or 3 times and maybe Max winning, but I'm not sure if the Red Bull's good enough for that, which we'll see.
Well, I mean, yeah, time will tell. We don't have a race coming up this weekend, so we have a little bit of time to sit here and think about it. Um, Ultimately, though, I mean, you got to keep considering the fact that Piastri he was actually catching Lando for third. He actually was faster than Lando. I told you, I think I literally said it would be something on pit road or whatever that would cost Piastri a podium, and I was right. So I'll give myself bonus points there. I didn't think it'd be a slow stop, though. I was not anticipating that. That's now what two out of the last 3 weeks, so or 3 races, I guess I should say, right? So I don't know. That's not a good sign if I'm a McLaren fan or a Piastri fan or a Norris fan at that. But Norris technically closes the gap to Piastri. What is it now? 22, right? I think
Yeah, it's 22.
22. So Norris is inching closer, but I don't know if inching closer is really the way to go about this. But we'll have to see as time goes on. You know what else? We kind of have to wait for it to unfold.
Contract negotiations.
Read my mind. There's two in particular I want to talk about. And no, does not consider Max Verstappen in this. Well, it does, but it doesn't. It's not about him in particular. I want to start with the more speculated one, the less factual one here. Leclerc, actually, Charles Leclerc. He's currently being tossed around to potentially be growing frustrated with Ferrari. Not too much backing it. Like there's some stuff coming out, but nothing like major. What do you make of just the whole entire? I mean, look at his whole stint with Ferrari and everything that's happened, and chalk that up. And look at right now. What do you think of that?
I mean, there will come a day in the near future where Leclerc is not a Ferrari driver. I have no doubt about that. I don't think he's going to stay there. He definitely won't be there forever, but I think his time is coming up soon because the clock is ticking. And we've seen in recent times, there's a lot of team mismanagement, and you could argue, we both argue that he has the pace and the talent to win championships. I don't think many people will argue on that. So if you give him a McLaren, he could probably beat Piastri. But
Absolutely. Right
yeah,
now,
exactly.
right now, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, we're both in agreement on that. So to see him kind of just rotting away at Ferrari is very disappointing. And in a way, Leclerc represents Ferrari. It's like when you think of the heartbreak and disaster that Ferrari's had, you think of Charles Leclerc. And I have a feeling he's going to go somewhere. I don't think it's going to be super soon, but in the next 5 years, he will be at another team. I have no doubt about that, unless Ferrari can nail next year's regulations and get him a title-winning car. In that scenario, he would do it, but it's an interesting cycle that Leclerc's had because not many drivers get to start out at Ferrari. And in his second year, he was already at Ferrari. That's a rare occurrence, and so he's so early into his career and is already getting the Ferrari experience. It's just whereas Hamilton on the other side has been at multiple other teams, won titles at multiple other teams, and then he's coming at the end of his career to win Ferrari. So it's an interesting dichotomy with Leclerc.
I do think this is worth noting, though. Leclerc will be in like a week from recording this. He'll be 28 years old, right? Now, Lewis Hamilton and Fernando Alonso, I want to mention, are not the norm when it comes to racing in F1 with their age. They're not. Most people in F1 are done by about 35, right? So, I'm just saying, if we're talking the prime years of Leclerc's career, he's kind of getting to the back end of his prime right now. If we off of norms, I mean, he could obviously run longer and be better longer. We don't know, but if we're just going to use general analysis here, he's getting to the back end of it. So, how much
Absolutely.
longer? How much longer is he willing to sit with Ferrari and be patient? Because eventually, you got to be like, my legacy is just going to be tarnished as the driver of a what if until I can go and do something with a car that they're giving me to actually win with.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the question will be, where will Leclerc go if he leaves? Well, I have an answer for you, actually. Mercedes is currently in contract dispute with George Russell, who is under contract for next year, by the way. But his contract, I believe, ends next year. So, with that being said, what will George Russell do if he does not return to Mercedes? I want to ask you that first, just on the assumption he doesn't.
I'm not sure. It's probably a good thing that that his contract runs up at the end of next year, because he can kind of have the new regs to gauge which teams are good, which teams are bad. Where do I need to go to keep myself in a competitive race car? Because it's not looking good at his time at Mercedes. Because with Antonelli, he's the youth. He's the up-and-coming guy for Mercedes. And Mercedes always wants to keep a seat open for Verstappen, just in case, even though it is starting to look less and less likely that Verstappen is leaving. And if Max does leave, he may very well go to a different racing discipline. We have no idea what the deal is with Max. So, Mercedes may get rid of Russell and be like, hey, Max, come here. And Max is like, I'm going to go run NASCAR. I'm just even not saying he's going to run NASCAR,
Yes,
but
yeah.
just in an example, Mercedes is in a tough spot because I wonder if they're in talks with Verstappen right now, or if they're just guessing that maybe Max will be available, and that's why they don't want to re-sign Russell. I'm not sure. It's just so heartbreaking for Russell that he's such a good driver. You could argue the second best driver on the grid, and yet the only reason he's not in contention for a seat is because of the first best driver on the grid. Like it's such a tough spot for him to be in, because I don't want to see him get kicked to the back of the grid. He's had plenty of years at Williams to get used to the back. He needs to stay in competitive cars.
And let's not act like Mercedes is necessarily giving him a car that can weekly go out there and win races. Let's not pretend that Mercedes has been this top team since he got there. They haven't been. In fact, the last year they could consistently win races was the year he was still at Williams.
Yeah, he's dragging. Exactly. He's dragging a as bad as it is still the second best car technically, but it's so far off the McLaren that him winning 2 races at Canada and Singapore is super impressive. I'm not sure it's as impressive as Singapore because McLaren did not have good pace there. But at Canada, McLaren had a pretty good car, but Mercedes came in, they nailed the weekend's pace, and Russell ended up nailing it even better, and was able to get the win. So there's no doubt about Russell's talent. But the good news is he can get the new regs to kind of gauge who's good. I couldn't give you a prediction on where he would go. Some teams to look out for would be the Aston Martins of the world, who we think have brought a lot of developments, updates, and upgrades going into the new regs. So maybe a seat becomes vacant there. Who knows?
Them and a potential Williams, because I've heard Lewis. Lewis could. What is his contract end? 27, right? I think this is when his contract ends. Yeah. I've heard multiple different worlds where Lewis retires and then either Albon or Sainz ending up back there, or Albon going to Ferrari.
Sainz? No way.
I've heard that. I don't know how truthful that will end up, if it happens, if that'll end up being, but there's scenarios like where he could go to Williams. I'm sure Alpine would love to have George Russell.
Yeah,
I'm sure they'd love that. Yeah, so there's options, right? But who will step out? And at that, what happens if Russell doesn't leave? Because there's also that option, right? So he specifically said he wants to stay with Mercedes. He's not like, let's not paint the picture like Russell's clawing out and Mercedes is holding him back. Like, no, it's actually the other way around. George Russell has been trying to negotiate with Mercedes to keep him there long term, but Mercedes refuses to iron out a continuous multi-year deal because they want to have Max Verstappen. And like you said, there's also the possibility Verstappen doesn't go there. There's the ability that, I don't know, let's say they snag some young driver from some development system and he turns out to be just as good as Antonelli somehow, right? As well as we think Antonelli will be, right? So there's all that. The Antonelli could be a bust. I mean, there's possibilities. There's possibilities everywhere. So I think people forget Kimi Antonelli is 19 years old.
Yeah.
He is crazy young, and he is driving in the second best car on the grid, and that's a lot of pressure for a driver. I think he's capable of holding it, but you have to keep in the back of your mind just a little bit, what happens if Antonelli just doesn't pan out? Then Mercedes really messes up. So Russell is still kind of young. He's not old by any means, so he's still in his prime. He wants to go to a team that can be competitive for years to come. And the problem is there's just not enough seats. I mean, the new regulations will tell us how many teams can be close to the front, but we don't know until we get there. And right now we are just speculating. But all I know is Mercedes is denying him a long-term deal, which is what Russell wants.
I'm kind of weirded out where you heard these Carlos Sainz reports from.
I heard it kind of was just tied in with Albon. It wasn't necessarily like Sainz specific. It was just like one of the Williams drivers to Ferrari in place of Hamilton, who could retire in the coming years.
Do you think Murdaddy 9244 might have said this? Was this his report, or did you hear this from a source?
I saw it online. I don't remember the source, to be blunt with you, but I did see this online. It was on Twitter somewhere. So I mean,
basically, what I'm trying to say is it's probably a Carlos Sainz fan.
It could be. It could be. You take that with a grain of salt, of course. I'm just saying I've heard potential. There's also the fact Alonso is rumored every year, it seems like, but especially next year to retire. So what will Aston Martin look like, and will that be a coveted seat? Because if that's a coveted seat, I mean, if I'm Russell, I don't hate going there. If I'm Leclerc, I don't hate going there if they're a good car, right? I mean, and they have the money. They're not running. They're not running out of money. So, I mean, most people on the grid, as you could say what you want about him as a driver, but most people on the grid like Lance. They like being around him. He's like one of the more likable drivers on the grid for drivers. So that's a good thing too. You're designed to be the driver one there. You will not be a driver two, which is seemingly, with a lot of the top teams right now, seems to be a problem. Who's the driver one? So you won't have that problem if you go to Aston Martin. That would be a big thing. This is assuming they nail the regulations, but I'm just saying they have Adrian Newey, so the chances are. There's also the fact. I'd like to throw this out here before we kind of send this off, that Max Verstappen obviously loves Adrian Newey. So what if Verstappen leaves to go to Aston Martin? That leaves a whole nother plot into this, right? Leclerc could go to Mercedes. I don't know. We
Christian Horner to Aston Martin?
I've heard that could happen. I don't think that
The
will happen.
ultimate
That would
reunited trio is back.
well, Horner doesn't. Verstappen does not like Horner. I believe. I think I might be wrong on that, but whatever.
Hey, he got him all. He helped him get all those championships. I think he'd love to have Horner and Newey back, especially with how bad the Red Bull is right now.
Oh gosh, Red Bull might be one of the worst teams on the grid, depending on
Oh
how
yeah,
they look
if
at
they
the
lose
regulations.
Max, they're in trouble because
And
they are Adrian Newey merchants.
and they are
They have
losing,
always been.
and they are not keeping Yuki. It's been all but confirmed they are not keeping Yuki for next year.
That's sad, man. That's sad.
I
But I'm glad he's gonna get out of Red Bull and
I,
finally go to hopefully a good team.
I will just, I guess, since we're kind of talking about silly season, throw this out here as well while we're about to throw this off air. But um, I think it's all but confirmed Hadjar's headed to Red Bull to replace Sonoda seemingly, and that Lindblad is coming up from F2 to replace Hadjar's seat, meaning it'd be Lawson and Lindblad, and Sonoda will effectively be off the grid unless he takes that Alpine seat. So, eh,
R.I.P. Hajar.
although
It was a good career, Isaac Hajar.
yeah,
It's
seriously.
over now.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard Colapinto might actually keep his ride after all for next year, so that would leave Sonoda just off the grid entirely, which is not a scenario we want either. I think Yuki's actually really talented. I know this year has obviously gone awry, but um, he is definitely not the full problem, if much of it all. Excuse
Yeah,
me, at
I
Red
would
Bull.
love to
So,
see him get a decent ride, not a Red Bull.
but with that said, do you have any other thoughts? NASCAR, F1. Do you have anything in general?
No, that is it from me. We're good.
So, hopefully we get to see some good racing at Las Vegas this weekend. I do actually have one more thing before we kind of go off the air, just in general. Um, NASCAR related specifically. We are looking forward to seeing our friend TJ Lair get on the racetrack once again. I believe he is, as of recording this, at Las Vegas, so hopefully you guys should go check out how he did. And hopefully we can see how his season ends. He's been doing a great job for us, and of course we're on his car, so we love to support our buddy over there. But with that being said, this has been Sideline to Speedway, our sixth episode of Motorsports. So,
I
uh,
believe so.
so it's always been a pleasure. Mekhi, Winfrey, and Parker Merrey as always, and we will see you guys in the next episode.
Thank you.